Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and this week we are showing off my Hammer horror collection. I did a video on this a while back, but I didn't really have too many movies, so I've gathered up a lot more since then. Of course, there's still a lot more I want to get and need to get, but here's what we have so far. So here we have a triple feature collection with Dracula, Prince of Darkness, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, and one of my favorite in the Frankenstein franchise, Frankenstein Created Woman. Next up we have Countess Dracula, featuring the lovely Ingrid Pitt, telling the story of the Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Next up we have Hammer Horror's version of The Mummy, which is pretty highly regarded as one of the best mummy films, of course outside the Universal monster movies. Next up is one I actually just got, The Plague of the Zombies. Really nice Blu-ray release from Scream Factory, and this was a first time watch for me. I just watched it last night and I really enjoyed it. Next is The Devil Rides Out. Really awesome movie with Christopher Lee, involving black magic and witchcraft as only Hammer can do. Next we have The Curse of Frankenstein, which is really the film that put Hammer on the map. You know, it's like their first real horror movie, and it's still one of the best. Next is one of the many sequels. I believe this was the first sequel in the franchise, The Revenge of Frankenstein. And here's another collection one featuring The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, The Scream of Fear, Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, and another one of my favorites, The Gorgon, featuring both Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And here's another Hammer horror collection, which is a really good one. This has The Curse of the Werewolf, as well as Brides of Dracula, and quite a few others. Let's take a quick look at it. Yeah, Brides of Dracula, Curse of the Werewolf, Phantom of the Opera, Paranoiac, The Kiss of the Vampire, Nightmare, which I really enjoyed, Night Creatures, otherwise known as Captain Clegg. Got The Evil of Frankenstein, yeah, so all kinds of good ones in there. Definitely recommend this one, and of course Brides of Dracula is worth this release all by itself, which is just an amazing part of the Hammer Dracula franchise. Sans Christopher Lee, of course. Next up, we're getting to the infamous Karnstein trilogy, which are based on the novel Carmilla. And this is the first one, featuring the lovely Ingrid Pitt in the role of Carmilla / Mircalla. And this is another release from Scream Factory, Lust for a Vampire, which is the second in the franchise of the Karnstein trilogy, and I would say definitely the sleaziest one. Next up is Twins of Evil, the third entry in the Karnstein trilogy and the final one, featuring a couple Playboy playmates, and this is a really awesome movie, and Peter Cushing has a great performance in this as well. Really, really fun, really good vampire movie, and very sexy as well. This little collection here is what basically got me into Hammer. I had seen like little clips and glimpses of Hammer films before. Like way back when I was a kid, I saw 1 million BC. And I believe I saw little clips of Horror of Dracula before, but this is what really got me into it, because I love all four of these movies. You got Horror of Dracula in there, you got Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, you got Taste the Blood of Dracula, and Dracula AD 1972. All great. And alright, speaking of the Dracula films, here we go with Horror of Dracula, which is the ultimate Dracula movie for me. It's the ultimate vampire movie and the ultimate Hammer movie. This movie is just phenomenal. I cannot get enough of it. And I've said it before, I think Warner Brothers needs to be slapped because they still have not come out with a decent version of this film on Blu-ray. They had never come out with the collector's edition. There is a bare bones Blu-ray from Warner Brothers, but not a special edition. I mean, if you're going to have any collector's edition of any Hammer film, this is the one. Next up is another really good release from Scream Factory, and that is Dracula, Prince of Darkness. This is the second film in the franchise, featuring Christopher Lee in the role of Count Dracula. Next you have Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. That is my favorite title, I think, in the franchise. And this is definitely a really good one. Extremely great gothic atmosphere and tone, and another awesome performance by Christopher Lee as the Count. Get that thing out of my sight! Throw it away! And here's another one I just received, and this is one of those kind of bare bones Blu-rays that Warner Brothers comes out with, but I have to say, I have to give them credit. This does sound fantastic and has a nice picture. So yeah, it is a worthwhile release. I just wish it had some special features on it, because I love this movie. Taste the Blood of Dracula. This one, however, is a great special edition Blu-ray, Scars of Dracula. Probably the most underrated entry in the Hammer Dracula franchise. So this is a really nice release from Scream Factory. If you guys get a chance, definitely pick this one up. I also have the regular DVD version of Scars of Dracula as well. Next up, we have another one of the Warner Brothers Blu-ray releases, Dracula AD 1972. Which I feel is unfairly maligned. I really enjoy this film. If you can get past some of the crappy music at the beginning there, there's a lot of fun to be had in this film, and you still get another awesome, menacing performance from Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. Really fun movie. It's got that 70s feel. And last up, we have the Satanic Rites of Dracula. I still need to get a decent release of this. This is kind of a cheap one. But again, this is one that's heavily maligned. This was the last in the franchise to feature Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing together. And I just think it's a really fun movie. I think it's an absolute blast. And I think it has some of the best scenes between the two leads. They really battle it out, and it's such a good time. The Satanic Rites of Dracula. Alright guys, that's it for my Hammer Horror collection. Hopefully you'll be seeing another one of these videos down the line when I get a bunch more Hammer Dracula and Hammer Horror releases. And maybe some of the non-horror releases from Hammer, such as She, or Vengeance of She, 1 Million BC, and the Quatermass movies. I really need to get those. So yeah, still a lot of Hammer films I need to get. But thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.